President Donald Trump returning to Washington from the G7, calling it a great success on Twitter, but two diplomatic sources and one senior U.S. official tell CNN behind the scenes there was feuding between world leaders in France over his insistence that Russia be invited to rejoin the group.
A lot of people say having Russia, which is a power, having them inside the room is better than having them outside the room. By the way, there were numerous people during the G7 that felt that way. And we didn't take a vote or anything, but we did discuss it. My inclination is to say, yes, they should be in.
But CNN has learned that was not the case at all. Only outgoing Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte agreed with Trump, while most of the allies, including Britain's Boris Johnson, Germany's Angela Merkel, and France's Emmanuel Macron, balked at the idea, leading to tense, heated exchanges during a Saturday dinner. One diplomatic source saying Trump repeatedly blamed his predecessor, Barack Obama, for ejecting Russia from the group, even as he was outnumbered by counterparts who argued that Russia had become more undemocratic since it was ejected for invading Crimea in 2014.
It's come up. Should we put Russia back in? We spend a lot of time talking about Russia at those meetings, and they're not there. I think it would be a good thing if Russia were there, so we can speak directly, not have to speak by telephone and other things. I think Russia should be a part of it because we're looking for world peace and other things, trade and other things, and it would be a lot easier to have Russia in where they had always been.
One who's given a quote today says the president's support for inviting Russia back to the G7 just after they meddled in the election to support his campaign will leave millions of Americans with serious questions and suspicions. Again, that from Chuck Schumer. And then from the Republican Ben Sasse, this is weak. Putin is not our friend. He is not the president's buddy. He is a thug using Soviet-style aggression to wage a shadow war against America, and our leaders should act like it. Does the president, is he aware of these matters?
I think he is. The president feels like whenever you have an adversary, it's important to talk to them. And I think that's what he was getting at this morning. But, not only will there be members of Congress who disagree with this, but also our allies around the world. And they'll say that basically we're probably rewarding bad behavior if we allow Russia back into the G7, what used to be the G8, without having them change their behavior.
Since the Cold War, we've never taken such a stand as regarded to Russia, have we?
No, this is completely new, and we kicked Russia out of the G8 in 2014, and there's just been this view that they haven't changed what they were doing in Ukraine. They've been very aggressive in Syria. We had this poisoning case in Great Britain. So, the allies would say, why would you allow them to come back into this group when they clearly have been disruptive around the world?
And they're widely believed responsible for shooting down a commercial airliner that left 298 people dead.
So it was the G8 for a long time, and now it's the G7. And a lot of the time we talk about Russia. We're talking about Russia because I've gone to numerous G7 meetings. And I guess President Obama, because Putin outsmarted him, President Obama thought it wasn't a good thing to have Russia in. So he wanted Russia out. But I think it's much more appropriate to have Russia in. It should be the G8 because a lot of the things we talk about have to do with Russia. So I could certainly see it being the G8 again, and if somebody would make that motion, I would certainly be disposed to think about it very favorably.
Tonight, Kremlin-controlled media is celebrating after President Trump says he wants to see Russia rejoin the group of strongest industrial nations, the G7. A translated version of President Trump's remarks getting massive applause on state TV.
Well, that's not the way it really should work.
State TV already showing graphics of a G8 logo, now with a Russian flag, claiming President Trump made the move because he feels he owes Russia after the U.S. recently tested a land-based Tomahawk cruise missile.
Trump just tested the new Tomahawks that will soon probably be deployed next to our borders to scare us. So it looks like the American president feels guilty or ashamed. Saddened, Trump decided to unburden himself and agreed with Macron to invite us to G7. They missed us.
Russia was kicked out of the group in 2014 after it invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea. The decision was made during the Obama administration, but was approved by a majority of the member nations. Still, President Trump tonight choosing to praise Putin over his predecessor.
Because Putin outsmarted him, President Obama thought it wasn't a good thing to have Russia in, so he wanted Russia out.
Yes. Why do you think it's appropriate to invite Russia to the G7, given that they've meddled in the 2016 election?
Is it good? Probably not. Maybe it is. I mean, a lot of people are smart. A lot of people say having Russia, which is a power, having them inside the room is better than having them outside the room. By the way, there were numerous people during the G7 that felt that way. And we didn't take a vote or anything, but we did discuss it. My inclination is to say, yes, they should be in. A certain section of Ukraine that you know very well, where it was sort of taken away from President Obama. Not taken away from President Trump, taken away from President Obama. President Obama was not happy that this happened because it was embarrassing to him, right?
Wrong. What you just said is embarrassing to you. Number one, you obviously cannot remember the part of Ukraine that was seized by Vladimir Putin, Crimea. Here is all of the land on the planet that is in any sense under the jurisdiction of the President of the United States. And here is where Ukraine is. Saying a certain section of Ukraine was taken away from President Obama is exactly the same as saying that France was taken away from President Franklin Roosevelt when Nazi Germany invaded France before the United States entered World War II.